Hello, everybody. It's 9:30. We will wait a few minutes to see who else comes on, and then we will get started with our baby sleep clinic today. I'm so excited to be coming on with everybody. I haven't done one since September. Oh my gosh. I can't believe it's been that long. But I thought suddenly today I was like, or this last week I thought I haven't done one in a while, so I better get on to get all the moms sleeping, all of you moms that have been home since I don't know how many months, how old your babies are, but with COVID now almost going on a year, it's been a very different year for everybody. So we want to make sure we get our sleep organized here. Okay, so yeah, so if you want to keep yourself muted and keep your screen keep your video off, that would be great because I am recording. I have had some people ask for the recording afterwards, so that's why I'm doing that. I had a snafu on my last clinic in September. A mom was on video, and when I went to post it online, I noticed there was something inappropriate. She was feeding her baby, and I thought, uh-oh, I don't think she wants that image on my video on my website. So I was able to edit it out, but so that just reminded me, make sure to tell people to have their camera off. Anyways, okay, it's 9:32. I'm just gonna wait I'll wait 2 more minutes or so, okay, until we start. Get yourself comfortable. Get yourself a tea or coffee or water, whatever you need. So my presentation actually is going to probably take an hour and a half because it is quite a bit of information for you guys. So if you have to leave, just leave. I don't mind at all. If you do have a question, save it for the end, okay? That would be great. Okay, I will come back on in 1 minute here while we're waiting for a few more people to join. Okay, well, we should get started so that we have lots of time to go through all the information and through all your questions, okay? Okay, so you can see, well, first of all, hello from Saskatoon. It is -50, or I don't know. It's awful outside. I'm so happy though, the bus came this morning to pick up my kiddos. We had a plan to drive them if the bus didn't show up, but the bus showed up on time, which is great. We have a great new bus driver. He's always on time. Love that. Anyways, it's very cold and hopefully it doesn't last too long here. But it's hard when you're stuck at home, right? We've been stuck at home for almost a year now anyways. And with the cold weather, it makes it even worse. But the good news is, guys, once you've had this information with me today about your baby sleep, maybe you can start practicing some of these things and get your baby sleeping really well. You're not going anywhere anyways, right? The Christmas season for me was actually super busy because people were home on a break from work and people really wanted to work on sleep. So Christmas was busy. Anyways, my name is Kristal Miller. I have been doing sleep consulting since 2013 and it's been a while. I really enjoy it. It is great. It's a great career. It's very rewarding. It's not without its challenges, of course. I mean, working with people and their most precious child is a big, huge responsibility, but very rewarding as well. My website is elementsleep.com. Some of you may have been referred by friends. Some of you may have found me online. Just depends, and I welcome you here. So I'm certified by the Family Sleep Institute. The Family's FSI, as it's called for short, has been around since about 2011 or so. She was a lady who started a course, sleep training, for sleep training, training consultants. And it's one of the most well-known, reputable programs in the world. And she has coursework now in Mexico, Russia, Latin America, all around the world, and North America. So I maintain a certification through there. And yeah, so you can find me on my website, Element Sleep, and my cell number is there too if you wanted to text me with any questions. Okay, so I already talked a little bit about who I am. I am also, besides this certified sleep consultant, I'm also a certified parent coach and a child behavior specialist. So those are programs that I took after my sleep training because I wanted to work with parents on a behavioral level and also with older children too. So that has been a really awesome addition to my training and to my practice, because I can work with families who have toddlers who are not sleeping, or children who are not sleeping, or just general behavior things as well. Okay. And if you have an older child, say over 2 or say, 18 months plus, tomorrow morning, I have a behavior clinic, okay, for free as well. So there's going to be tons of awesome information shared on that too. So sign up for that and you can come and get some behavioral tips. So I have worked with hundreds of Canadian and American families. I mean, hundreds doesn't sound like a lot, but for one person, it's a lot. But yeah, it's been a joy the whole time. Okay, so what will we cover today? We are going to cover the things you need to know first about sleep training. We're going to go through an introduction. We're going to talk about the sleep environment and safe sleep. We'll talk about sleep associations, schedule, routine, and nighttime feedings, and a bunch of other stuff sprinkled in there as well. Okay, what will we not cover today? So today we're not going to cover the sleep training techniques, as these are very specific to the family. It depends on your parenting style and the needs of your child, okay? Helping you do the sleep training correctly and coaching families is the main aspect of my job. So if you are wanting to actually dive into sleep training and you don't feel like you can do it on your own, and your baby's over like 4 or 5 months, please reach out to me for help, because that is what I do. Okay, just hold on. Okay, what you need to know about my philosophy. So my philosophy when I approach sleep training is that babies are naturally, like when I'm working with my families in terms of what to expect, babies naturally wake between 6 and 7 a.m. and need a bedtime of between 6 and 7 p.m. So the day is almost kind of broken into 2 parts, right? Day and night, 12-hour chunks. Early bedtimes are a lifesaver. So we can, if there's one thing you're going to try to improve your child's sleep, is an earlier bedtime, starting at about 5 months. Okay. So at 5 months plus, they start to need an earlier bedtime. Before 5 months, sometimes they still kind of nap throughout the day, and then their bedtime might be shifted later because of their naps. But overall, an early bedtime is going to be a lifesaver. My sleep plans include the amount of night feeds you want. So don't think like sleep training is like we're going to totally not, feed the baby all night. No, absolutely not. We are realistic in our expectations. So when we do a sleep plan, we include the amount of nighttime feeds that you want. So whether it's 1 or 2 or whatever, we always go by what the baby can do realistically. You have to know, once your baby is a certain age, too many night feeds can encourage the nighttime wakes. So we want to make sure that we are realistic in terms of whether we're offering too many and that's causing too many night wakes, right? Babies can learn to sleep and love routines, okay? That is just fundamental. They love routines and they love sleep. Sleep becomes self-reinforcing, okay? So when you have, say, for instance, even like if we're giving the example of an older child, you can't force them to sleep And you can't using rewards to make them sleep don't really work in the long term. The only thing that works is the idea that I sleep and then I feel good from the sleep, and that reinforces the need to sleep. Babies need lots of sleep, and when they start sleeping better, they start eating better, and they're just so happy. Like I have clients that report to me, oh, baby is just full of beans today, they're eating like crazy, and they're just in a much better mood. Sleep training takes time and patience. You have to know this. So I'm always realistic with my clients that we say sleep training takes time, 2 to 3 weeks to get habits established. And then sleep is something you're going to always make a priority in your family. It's never going to not be, a priority. It's always going to be something that you are making sure you keep in a routine. That doesn't mean that when when it's Christmas and you're out visiting relatives, or when you're out late one night at a barbecue, it doesn't mean that you're gonna always you're gonna always be a slave to the routine. But you have to know that you will mostly prioritize sleep. Once you see how well it works, you will just go with it. It works great. So I can help any family, regardless of where you're at now. So if your baby is over 16 weeks and you...
I signed up. I'm on a sleep training thing.
Can you mute yourself, please?
It's like a free thing to...
Hold on. Sorry, whoever is on, can you please mute yourself? Okay. Anyway, so I can help any family, regardless of where you're at right now. Okay, so my hope is that you can get some awesome information from my clinic today. If not, please know that my services can be booked on my website. The Jumpstart plan is $250 plus tax. Now that includes a call, like a consult call of 1.5 hours plus a sleep plan. So you would get all the information you need from that call, all the information, all the plan, everything, but you won't get the coaching. Okay. If you want the coaching, that was my rescue plan. That's $350, which is a call, or like a Zoom call plus sleep plan plus 2 weeks of texting. Okay. So that gets you that. And a 1 hour call only is $100. That is like pick my brain, whatever you want, in terms of getting the information. That's $100. And I want to keep my services affordable. Okay. So while it is a specialty service, so it's a specialty knowledge. So you have to know that you're paying maybe a little bit of, you're paying a little bit more than, say, for a book or something, right? But it's because you get my specialized knowledge that is really direct and focused on your family. It's not just generalized. Okay. That's what most people find this to be the benefit. Okay. If you want to read my reviews, just Google Element Sleep. You'll see them all on there. Most parents say it is the best money they have spent. It is an investment in their family. Okay. And if you think of it this way, imagine if you said to yourself, I'm just going to go and spend 2 nights in a hotel to be able to sleep. You could spend that money instead on getting good sleep for everybody every night. And then when you take a vacation, it's not to sleep, it's to actually have a vacation. Okay, let's go through an introduction to sleep in general. So why do we sleep? Scientists are not exactly sure why, actually. They are continuously studying this, and they think that they're coming closer to the answer. But scientists do know that it is vital to our health. Okay, so if you don't sleep, you will be not too healthy. And actually, sleep is one of the 3 pillars of health. So we go sleep, exercise, and nutrition are part of the 3 pillars of health. Okay, so sleep is very vital. Why do babies need sleep? For their proper growth and development. And you need sleep to be the best parent you can be. Okay, further in the presentation, I'll be talking about why babies, what the purpose of the naps are. But for now, we know they need it for their proper growth and development. And it also helps to regulate their eating habits too, their eating pattern. Okay, what does normal baby sleep look like? Okay, I am a realist. I don't let people come to me and like have these wild expectations about how a little baby should sleep. No, we always keep it realistic. So what is a normal amount of wakes for a baby? Babies are supposed to wake up at night. It's normal, it's natural. So from newborn to the end of the 3rd month, night wakes are erratic and not due to habit, okay? You're gonna be waking up constantly to feed the baby. Their sleep's not in any kind of pattern. That's totally normal. That is where you need to come up with a plan to support yourself, whether it's you and your spouse. I know with COVID, it's really difficult because people are not getting the supports that they need. So you need to figure out what will work for you. People say, you know, sleep when the baby sleeps. That is kind of it's a little bit of a, you know, old, like people say it all the time. People probably roll their eyes, but it is true. If it's in this time and you're not getting a lot of sleep at night, you need to sleep during the day, because babies that age sleep lots during the day too. During the 4th month and the 5th month, 1 or 2 nighttime feeds you'll be doing, or more, depends. It'll still be normal at that age to be a little bit more. Night wakes can also still be quite prevalent. So you might still be waking up a lot between around 4 or 5 months. However, I want you to know the good news is sleep training can be effective starting at about 5 months, maybe a little bit earlier, depending on the baby. And I'm not talking about sleep training. I don't mean cried out. That's not what I use. Absolutely not. Sleep training has various methods, from very gradual, very gentle, very much mom and dad involved, to even less, to a less involved, maybe still being present for the child, but just different amounts of help that you can give. Okay, so there's a spectrum of sleep training methods. The 6th and 7th month, your child by this age should be good with 0 to 1 nighttime feeds. Now, this is the age. Remember I was saying before that if you feed too many times, it makes them wake more. Okay, this is where that age, where it starts to really happen. So 0 to 1 nighttime feed. If you're doing 2 nighttime feeds and you're happy with that and the baby's sleeping settled otherwise, then that's good to continue with that. But then with your doctor's permission, you can probably start to wean that down to 1 at least. Around 8 months, you can likely night wean, and your child can learn to sleep through the night, most likely at 8 months or possibly sooner. Okay, so if that's not happening at this age, then please reach out for help. We can definitely work with what you have going on. Always check and clear with your doctor first, okay? I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse or nutritionist. You always have to check and clear with your doctor if you're unsure, okay? And when we do sleep training, a sleep training plan with me, I always assume ahead of time that you have cleared this with your doctor, okay? I have a sleep consulting agreement that says that you have understood that you are the parent and you know your child best, right? So it's up to the parent to determine. Okay, babies need 100% consistency in our approach to sleep. Starting at 2 months, we can build in a routine. So when you have a little baby, 2 months, if you watch for when they start to smile at people, little social smiles, that's when you can build in a routine. I don't mean sleep training, I mean a routine where you read a couple books, sing a song, just make a little mini routine that they can predict each time for sleep. You cannot create any bad habits between months 0 to 4. That means that at the 4-month mark, it is important to start putting baby down awake and a bit earlier for bedtime. Okay, why do they have to go down awake? Because at 4 months, the 4-month sleep regression is where it's not so much of a regression as a maturation of the brain, and their sleep cycles are starting to resemble more of an adult sleep cycle, where they cycle from the deep to the light sleep. Okay, through the sleep cycles, and they wake up a little bit. If they wake up from that sleep cycle at 4 months, and if they're not being rocked or nursed to sleep anymore, like if they went down with help, when they wake up from that sleep cycle, they need that help again. Okay, they have a hard time putting themselves back to sleep starting at 4 months if they're not in control of the different sleep associations. So we'll talk more about that after. So you can't develop any bad habits prior to that, but at 4 months is when it's important to start thinking about having baby go down a little bit awake. How much day sleep does my baby need? So until 6 months, they need about 3.5 hours of daytime sleep. 7 to 9 months, they need about 3 hours of total day sleep, spread out over 2 naps. 10 to 15 months, they need about 2.5 hours of day sleep, and 16 months and plus is 2 hours. Okay, so this is just a general guideline. Some babies might be a little more. This is mostly the minimum, so just know you have to know your child best. Maybe they need a little bit more, but this is a general guideline. If your baby is getting much more than what's listed here and you're having problems at night, that could be why. So start limiting that sleep to those minimum amounts, and then you might find the nighttime sleep improves. Then I have on the bottom here plus 11 to 12 hours of nighttime sleep. So the amounts above in the naps, daytime naps, are plus their 11 to 12 hours of nighttime sleep. Okay, and I don't mean like all the way through. I mean based on how many nighttime feeds they may have. Their sleep might be interrupted for half an hour while they're having a nighttime feed. But overall, that's the amount of time that you'd want them to be settled in their crib for night. Okay, purpose of sleep. So I mentioned I was going to go through why do our babies have naps? The naps are not just a bridge to bedtime. They're more than that. The morning nap is more mentally restorative for them. So it sets the tone for the rest of the day, keeps them happy for the rest of the day because they had a nice morning nap. The afternoon nap is where they're really more physically restorative. They're resting their bodies. Their bodies are doing all that great growth. And now I want you to know, if you're trying to encourage some healthy sleep habits in your house with your baby and the afternoon nap is still kind of not really too great, that's normal. It takes a while for the afternoon nap to start to develop. So if you're looking for that 2-hour afternoon nap, it takes time for it to develop. There are some sleep programs out there that tell moms to like have the baby only sleep for half an hour or 45 minutes in the morning. I don't agree with those. You don't want to be limiting that. You don't want to limit that morning nap just to get a good afternoon nap. Don't do that. A nap should be a minimum of an hour. Okay, that would be the shortest I'd want you to cap it to would be an hour to preserve the afternoon nap. Nighttime sleep is more restorative between 6 p.m. and midnight. Okay, so you want to make sure, I'm not saying put your baby to bed at 6 p.m., but I'm saying that we would want to probably, let's say later in the presentation, I've got the amount of naps that you should be doing. Over time, we want to start focusing on an early bedtime over top of additional naps beyond that. So if your baby's 6 months, yes, you might do 3 naps. You should not be doing a 4th nap, okay? You should just be doing a maximum of 3 naps and an early bedtime. So if you're finding your baby's not sleeping long enough for naps, sometimes it helps to spread out the awake time a little bit more and get them down for that age-appropriate amount of naps and an early bedtime. Yes, there'll be some, maybe they might be a little bit overtired in the meantime while you're trying to stretch those wake times a bit, but that's sometimes at certain ages, that's what you need to do to start getting them to sleep longer for their naps, because they need to have a right amount of sleep pressure to be able to sleep long enough for the nap. So sleep pressure refers to the amount of time before the nap. Has to be just the right amount. Can't be too little and it can't be too much, which for moms I know is hard. It gets tricky. It's like, well, what's the right amount, right? So I'll go over that in a little bit too. Okay, common reasons why we avoid sleep training. Some people say, well, the baby is teething. Well, I want to say they teeth for the first 2 years and beyond, okay? So you have to know you can't not sleep train because of teething. Of course, if your baby is like super uncomfortable because of it, yes, you want to manage that pain. But teething, I mean, you can't blame that on 6 months of bad sleep, right? Some people say to me, well, I don't want to sleep train because I don't want to wake up a sibling. Okay, you cannot parent out of fear, okay? Get the older sibling on board in terms of the sleep and tell them, if you wake up in the night and you hear your little sister or your little brother, fussing a little bit, it's normal, grab your teddy bear and go back to sleep. So you have to know that it might just be a temporary thing that you need to do for the whole family, and it might just be, like I said, a temporary disruption. And when I'm working with my families, I help you develop strategies and tools to overcome that, not wanting to wake a sibling. Another thing people say is they're having a growth spurt. Of course, babies have growth spurts, and you always want to be responsive to that. One way you can do is you can say, for example, increase their calories during the day. Okay, so you can do that. I don't see many instances where babies start to need, like say after 5 months or so, I don't see areas where they need to start adding in nighttime feeds. I think it's better to add calories during the day and to try to have, if they're having a feed in the night, you can increase the amount, maybe they get it that one feed, right? So these are situations that I always am dealing with my clients and helping them out with. There's no one cookie cutter solution. I see lots of moms online using leaps and stuff like that as guidelines, and I think that's fine. I mean, the leaps, I typically don't follow them a lot myself because I have enough other professional, development areas that I focus on. But leaps, I think, are good for, like, if you want to try to understand your baby's behavior or development through a different kind of lens, I think is okay. The one thing that I find that what I notice online is moms saying, we're in leap 5 and oh gosh, this is the worst leap and sleep's terrible and it's supposed to get better by leap 8. And to me, I'm like, well, I don't think that you should have to wait that long for it to get better. I think we can work with a child no matter whether they're going through a leap or not. We can always work within the context of where they're at and in terms of meeting them where they're at and their development and trying to encourage better sleep. I don't ever blame sleep on any leaps, okay? Okay, what is the current research on sleep training itself? So there is more information coming out all the time about the benefits of sleep training. Okay, and again, when I say sleep training, please don't think I'm saying close the door and don't go in. That's absolutely not what I mean. Sleep training has a variety of techniques we can use, whether you're with your child, not with your child, coming in and out of the room, whatever it is, we can find what works for them. There are huge benefits to it. Now, avoiding fragmented sleep for babies and children prevents problems down the road. So when you have starting out with fragmented sleep for your child, and especially as they're getting older, closer to a year old, avoiding these fragmented sleep can really help these behavior problems down the road, and it helps them to grow, helps them to be happier and more. And I think it just helps overall. Sleep training is effective, safe, and has zero effect on attachment. So many people will say, you know, they'll say, oh, I'm an attachment parent and I don't believe in letting my child cry. Well, no one likes hearing their child cry. That's just a basic fact. You can still be attached to your child. You're loving, you're responsive, you give your child everything that they need. And it's okay to, in that context, to still have a certain expectation for an amount of sleep at night. We're never not responding to our child. You're going to respond to them as they need it, but you also, as the parent, you know that they still also need a certain amount of sleep, right? So you're still giving them what they need and ensuring that they get enough rest. So that's part of being a responsive parent as well. And there have been longitudinal studies done on children who have, say, who are 6 or 7 years old and who may have been some mild sleep training or non-sleep training, and there was zero difference in those children in terms of how attached they were to their parent. There's no problem there. I've never had a parent come to me and say that this ruined something. Never, ever. The only the feedback I get from families is that it increases their connection to their child, because instead of always just holding them for their naps and being exhausted all the time, they're putting baby down in their crib for their nap. They're sleeping for an hour. They wake up just happy as a clam, and then you have that energy to be interacting and to be parenting them while they're awake. It's really wonderful. Part 3, it benefits parental mental health tremendously. I've had moms say to me recently, I had a mom say to me 2 days ago, her little guy's like 7 months. And he actually, she had been feeding him at night the one time since working with me. And all of a sudden he slept through the night. And she had a great sleep. And she said, I slept more last night than I have since before I was pregnant. So she feels great. And she has a 4-year-old child as well. So she's present for that other child. She's spending time with her older child, and it really benefits the whole family. Oh, someone is coming in. Hold on. Okay, great. Okay, let's talk about the sleep environment. So, hey, how you're thinking to yourself, Kristal, how do I sleep train my child? You can start with the sleep environment. You can make improvements to their sleep without doing any sleep training, just by following these next things that I'm going to tell you. So how do we set it up to maximize sleep? The sleep environment should be dark as a cave. Okay, I mean dark. I mean close your eyes, and that's how dark it is, like no light coming in. Your child's not scared of the dark. Okay, that is a learned thing. Okay, so they can sleep in the dark, it's no problem. Use white, brown, or pink noise. So most people just have a white noise machine. That's great. Do not have it more than 50 decibels. Okay, 50 decibels is the max. Do not have it close to their head. Have it across the room. Sleep temperature in the room should be cool, around 20 to 21 degrees. Okay, so if you keep it cooler, that's great. And I've had success with parents, like if the room's say 20, think about your own self when you're sleeping in your room and it's 20. You have probably your pajamas and a big comforter over you, right? So your baby needs one more layer than that, okay? Because your baby's just lying there with nothing on their bodies, okay? So if you want, try putting 2 layers on their arms. So you might put like a diaper shirt with long sleeves, and then a pajama over top, and then a sleep sack. So that might sound like a lot, and we don't want to overheat our babies, of course. But it's better for the room to be cool and for them to be even in an extra cotton layer to keep them warm, okay? I've had success with parents doing that, and it helps their sleep. Because I just want you to know, after midnight, when babies are going through their sleep cycles, the body temperature actually goes down after every sleep cycle, after midnight. So that's why if you're seeing lots of early morning wakes and baby not being able to settle, it could be just simply because they're cold. So try dressing them in another cotton layer. Of course, if your baby is sweating and you think that they're too hot, then that's not a good idea. You are in charge of your own, you have to make sure you know what you're doing. But with you have to be wary, or you have to be aware of your child's temperature. But if you're having trouble with sleep, especially in the second half of the night, just try adding one more layer. Okay, safe sleep. Babies should sleep alone on their backs in their crib. Okay, so this is part of safe sleep. The crib should be absolutely bare. No blankets, no stuffed animals, no pillows, no bumpers, no nothing. Okay, now if you want baby in your room, you can use a pack and play or a crib in your room next to your bed. Use a sidecar sleeper if necessary, where there's a barrier between the two, just so that you're completely safe. Helps the mom access the baby to feed and everything like that. So use that if necessary, but please always use a safe bed approved for safe sleep, okay? Canadian Pediatrics recommends babies share your room for 6 months. In some circles, this is increased to 12 months, okay? I think the minimum might still be 6 months. So I think that's what lots of people follow. Anecdotally, I want you to know that babies who sleep in their parents' room may wake 50% more. That's why they want people to room share, because that does increase babies' chance to wake up. If there's something like SIDS happening, like they will be more likely to wake up. But that also causes many problems too, because babies wake up so frequently when they're sharing your room. When otherwise, if they wouldn't have been in the room with you, they may have just gone back to sleep in a minute, right? But then because when they wake up, they sense, smell, and hear you. I have lots of parents who say, well, I put baby down to bed, and then when I go to bed at 10:30, the baby wakes up because they can hear mom and dad coming in, okay? That is not something I can tell you what to change. You need to talk with your doctor about that, but I'm just telling you, generally, babies wake more when they're in the room with you. So have them in the room with you till 6 months if that's what you want, and then at 6 months, you're totally okay to put them in their own room. Use a monitor, have them right next door to you, it's all good. There's a slight protective factor to having baby in your room, but having them in their own room does not increase their SIDS risk. So when they're in the room with you, like I said, there's a protective factor, okay? But if you decide that it's best for your family to move them to their own room and use a baby monitor, that doesn't increase their SIDS risk. It just makes the risk back to the baseline amount, okay? Any questions on this? You can look it up. There's lots of information online. There's a really awesome Facebook group. If you want it, please message me. It's like the Safe Infant Sleep, I think is what the Facebook group is called, okay? It's great. Okay, let's talk about sleep associations. Okay, what is that? A sleep association is anything that your baby needs to fall asleep will be needed at each wake up. So a sleep association in and of itself is not a bad thing. It just means whatever your baby associates with falling asleep, as simple as that. Whatever they associate with falling asleep will be needed again at each wake up. Sometimes after a sleep cycle, they might, put themselves back to sleep. It's a great skill. If they have that skill already, that's awesome. Some babies have a personality where it doesn't matter, they'll still need it each time. So if you have a babe who's, say, over 5 months, who's still waking up every hour or two at night, that is strictly about associations. So if we remove those associations, that's what will help them to fall back asleep, because they're totally in charge of themselves falling back asleep. Because they start out by learning that skill at the beginning of the night, and then they are able to repeat that when they wake up each time. That's essentially what sleep training is all about, is helping them learn to fall asleep at the beginning of sleep or nap, sleep at bedtime or sleep at nap time, and then they're able to link those sleep cycles to fall back asleep. So sleep associations, like I said, are anything your baby cannot control on their own. Some examples are needing to be rocked to sleep, needing to be nursed to sleep, needing someone to replace the passy. Okay, so I don't say whether this is a bad or a good thing to need mom and dad multiple times per night. It just is what it is. There's no value attached to it. Waking between sleep cycles is normal. It is up to you, mom or dad, whether you want to be up this many times. Some parents deal with it, others can't deal with it, okay? It's very simply about what you can handle, Okay, so I attach no value to whether you are up 5 times, 10 times, 0 times, 1 time. It's only what you can handle. If you decide to yourself, I can't function on this little amount of sleep, that's when you need help. If you decide between the two of you, mom takes this shift of the night, dad takes this shift of the night, and you're able to handle that, perfect. Love it. Go with that. I help families who often are operating on minutes of sleep. And as a human being, you cannot operate on minutes of sleep. It's not healthy. You're in crisis. Some are just in crisis mode. Some have a 13-month-old still waking up 5 times a night and they have to go back to work the next day. Like that, they're going back to work right away. Some parents I help are shift workers. Others are nurses, doctors, police officers, teachers, anybody. It doesn't matter what they do. They have a job that needs them to be able to sleep at night, okay? That's where I come in. And you have to know too, for sleep training, it does not take weeks. I mean, yes, you're going to be focusing on it for a few weeks and it's getting better and better as the week goes on. But this is not weeks of crying. It's not. It's maybe the first night, maybe 20 to 30 minutes of baby fussing off and on, and then they fall asleep. And it really is, it's much easier than what you think it is. So many of my clients come to me and they've got this, it really built up in their minds that it's just going to be awful, awful, awful. But it's not. You have a plan, you follow the plan, and it actually, many people come to me the next day and say, wow, that was easier than I thought. Okay, so this is not about weeks and weeks of listening to your baby, so upset. It's really not. It's at the most 2 or 3 days of a little bit of a disruption, and then after that, it's much easier. So like I'm saying, I don't attach any kind of value to whether your child needs to be rocked or nursed to sleep. Many babies can be rocked or nursed to sleep and then still sleep through. That's great. That means that baby can fall asleep in any way that they do and then still be able to put themselves back to sleep. That's great. So in this case, that is not a sleep association per se, okay? They can put themselves back to sleep. About half of the babies can do that. The other half of babies will still need you to come in and repeat it, whatever it was you did at the beginning of the night. So it's strictly about the baby's personality, okay? And what just something about the way that they need it, and they're very attached to what they have at the beginning of the night, okay? So what about positive sleep association? So again, the word positive sleep association, I'm not saying that that's positive like good. I mean, meaning positive, meaning it's a habit that the baby is in control of. It's within themselves, right? That's what that means. So we want to create habits that your baby can control on their own. So if your baby's trying to suck on their hand or thumb or fingers to self-soothe, that's a great skill. We want them to be able to do that because again, it doesn't require mom or dad to be there, right, to help. What about moving around to get comfortable? Babies move around, they roll, I had one couple tell me the other day, their baby's shimmying around and all kinds of different angles in the crib. That's normal. Rolling onto their tummy and then back again, okay? Very normal. Now, what about the bassinet? So many babies are still in the bassinet. They need to be in a crib. It's so much more comfortable for them. I have babies who they're trying to move around and they just can't because they're in this bassinet. Once we move them to the crib, they start rolling around. They go onto their tummy. And if they get onto their tummy on their own, you can keep them there, okay? Favorite small blankie. Some babies like to have a small blankie if they're over 12 months, like small, I mean a small blanket as a comfort blanket. If they're under 12 months, I sometimes tell my clients like a small stuffed animal, like no bigger than like your fist, kind of thing. If they have a little something that they can kind of hold on to, sometimes they like that. Those wubba nubs or something on like a little face cloth kind of size thing. Please check with your doctor if you're unsure, but lots of people do have a tiny little thing that they put in. But no big stuffies or blankets or pillows, please. Some babies make their own sleep sounds. So they moan a little bit or they kind of make little cries out in their sleep and then they go back to sleep. White noise is a positive sleep association because you don't have to turn it back on every 45 minutes. So make sure you have a white noise machine that goes all night, right? All these things that I mentioned are under their control. Ideally, the environment when they wake up has to be the same as when they initially fell asleep. So it's it's a very simple concept. The environment just has to be consistent when they wake up as when they fell asleep because they go, oh, hey, everything's the same. I can go back to sleep. Much like you as an adult, when you wake up in the night, and you don't realize this, but you do this lots of times a night. Your brain does a scan of your house, your environment, to see what's going on. Is my spouse still lying there? Or is there any funny noises in my house? Is anything out of place? Is my pillow still there? You do this every time you wake up, and you are so practiced at putting yourself back to sleep, you don't even realize it. So that's what, because you've been doing this for so many years, you've been sleeping for so many years, right? Your baby just is learning these skills. That's all that sleep training is about, is helping them to access that ability to fall back asleep. The best sleep happens when they can recreate this environment. And it definitely leads to better sleep for everybody. You can ask yourself, how do I introduce a lovey? So how we do this is under 12 months, I say they can have something small, very, very small. Hold it with you for the first 3 to 4 days for all your snuggles and feeding times and playtime and stuff. Then when you notice that your baby's starting to touch it, and hold on to it and kind of attach to it, then you can just have it for sleep and it stays in the crib. And you'll notice that baby will, when you put them down to sleep, they'll reach for it and they'll use it to snuggle. But Kristal, what about the soother? Oh gosh, the soother is a really, really big crutch. I want to tell you guys, 90% of my families, we take away the soother. Some keep it. Let's chat about how to do that. Before 4 months, the soother has a protective factor against SIDS because it prevents them from falling into a deep sleep. So before 4 months, even maybe up to 5 months, your doctor may say, yes, they need a soother because it keeps them from falling into a deep sleep, and it has a protective factor against SIDS. After 4 or 5 months, you can remove it if it is disruptive. So I tell my families, only remove the soother insofar as it is disrupting everybody's sleep. If you're having to get up every hour to replace it, how is that serving anybody? It's not, okay? Or you can give the soother at the beginning of the night, but not replace it during sleep. So they can have it to suck on either during their routine or when they're first falling asleep, but then you will not replace it. So if your baby's old enough to try to grab one in the crib, you can put a bunch in the crib and they can grab it and put it in their own mouth. Perfect. That would be under their control. So that's fine. If they're not old enough to do that yet, and you're finding that they really, really rely on the soother, then you might have to decide to do some sleep training with them to help them fall asleep without the soother. It takes time, but it is doable. Okay, let's talk about the schedule. So what we talk about for sleep consultants, there is some different, schools of thought. So you'll hear people talk about how many hours should your baby be awake. I do focus on that sometimes. I give that information to my clients because you have to know if you're not following kind of a loose wake window kind of idea, you don't want to be trying to put your baby to bed too quickly or too late. Okay, so it gives parents a good idea of when their baby will be tired, but it's not the be all and end all. Okay, so we focus on junk sleep versus healthy sleep. I want to tell you, healthy sleep is happening at certain times of the day. People who say to me, I want my baby to sleep from 8:30 p.m. to 8:30 a.m. I want to tell you that is not the healthiest sleep. The healthiest sleep that happens for our babies is around 9. There's a sleep wave that happens between 9 and 10 a.m. and then again around somewhere between 12 and 2. So there's a sleep wave that happens during those 2 times of the day. If your naps are happening outside of those times, really outside of those windows, it could just be junk sleep and it's not the most restorative sleep. So let's talk about how to maximize these healthy sleep windows. So from 0 to 4 months, your baby's just going to eat, sleep. There's no real schedule. It's nothing developed yet, okay? From 4 to 5 months, your ideal naps are around, they're not able to get to that 9 a.m. window yet. So they're going to be around, anywhere from 8 to 8:30-ish, then around 11, 3, and then sometimes a 4th nap, okay? So you can see on this schedule, you want them to be awake about 1.75 to 2.5 hours, okay? So if your baby's waking up between 6 to 7 a.m., their naps will fall at those best times. So you can see that between 4 to 5 months, I've got 8 a.m. here. That's going to gradually go towards, 8:30-ish, 11 a.m., they may not be able to make it past 11, but our main goal is to have the lunch eking a little bit more, or sorry, the nap verging or eking a little more closer to noon over time. And then they'll need that third cat nap. I prefer not to have a fourth nap, but 4 to 5 months, they may still need a fourth nap. But again, always prioritize an earlier bedtime, 6 or 6:30 over a fourth additional nap, okay? What about 5 to 6 months, including up to even 7 months, you guys? From 5 to 7 months of age, I want you just to start focusing at this time and on the clock times, okay? So instead of going by the wake hours, if you are really struggling to create a schedule for your baby at this age and you're just like, oh, this is awful, try sticking to these nap times for a week and see how it goes. Now, what that would be is your first nap is around 8:30. Okay, no earlier than that. 8:30 a.m. Then your second nap is going to be around 12:30. And then you're going to offer a cat nap at 3:30 or 4. Okay, so cat nap is where you just put them in their crib because they're just going to be so tired by this time. They can't make it to bedtime. You offer a cat nap at 3:30 or 4, and you just put them in their crib for 20, 25 minutes. Give them a chance to fall asleep. If they haven't fallen asleep in 20 or 25 minutes, just take them out and then do an early bedtime. Okay, so you're not going to force them to try to have a long nap at this time. They don't. I've had parents text me before and be like, Kristal, she's still sleeping for her third nap. What should I do? Should I wake her up? And usually what happens is they wake themselves up on their own after about 40, 45 minutes of that cat nap. Because guess what? Babies know when they need to be going to bed. They know they're not going to sleep from 3:30 to 5:30. When they're this age, they shouldn't sleep from 3:30 to 5:30. They should only sleep for about 45 minutes, maximum an hour at that time. And then they wake up and then they're ready for a couple more hours of awake time before they go to bed at that biologically appropriate time of around 7-ish, 6:37. Okay. So you have to know that this schedule, if you're having a hard time kind of developing a schedule for your babe, just follow this for a few weeks and give it a try. Okay. It will improve things, I promise. What about once your baby's 7 to 14 months? Now, this is a tricky time because we have to get them away from the 3 naps. So again, remember at 7 months, they're going to start wanting to only have about 3 hours of daytime sleep. I want you to do your best to start spreading that sleep out over 2 naps above a total of about 3 hours. So an hour and a half each nap. Sometimes they might do 1 hour, one nap, and then 2 hours the next nap. It just depends on the baby, right? So every day is going to be different. But what you're going to be aiming for is a nap, your first nap being around 9 or 9:30. Okay. Nap 2 is at about 1 or 1:30. So about 3 hours in between the first and second nap. Okay. So that's the only time when I really advise like a wake hour window is between those 2 naps. About 3 hours is perfect for them. If you want to focus on awake hours from this age, you can look at it, see how I have at the bottom here, I have the 2, 3, 4. What that refers to, you may have seen this online, it's a popular concept, 2, 3, 4, meaning 2 hours before nap 1, 3 hours before nap 2, and 4 hours before bedtime. Sometimes you might do, or 2.5, 3.5, 3.5 is another schedule that some families follow. That's if you find that your baby can be awake 3.5 hours, between nap 1 and 2, if you find that they're happy, you can stretch out that time before nap 2. But then you have to shorten you have to shorten the amount of awake time before bedtime, okay, to 3.5 hours. So you can tell there that that's 7 hours of awake time before their last 2 sleeps. So you're just spreading it out differently if you do 3.5, 3.5, or 3 and 4, okay? But generally your baby's going to be, no matter how old your baby is, they're going to be ready for a first nap 2 to 2.5 hours before they, in between their 2, when they wake up in the morning and their first nap. 2 to 2.5 hours is sometimes the most they can be awake. Because remember, their sleep in the morning is more mentally restorative, and it's a continuation of their nighttime sleep. The sleep after midnight is very light, and they're dreaming lots. And then when they wake up in the morning, their first nap is a continuation of that nice light sleep, and it's mentally restorative for them, okay? So they're generally really tired by the time that first nap comes around. And usually if you're trying to incorporate your babe into like sleeping in their crib or having a good nap time on their own, try it with the first nap because they're more likely to accept it, okay? If they, and then don't ever start sleep training with nap 2 because nap 2 is very hard for them to accept sometimes. So start with nap 1, Try that for a week. And then if that's going well, then introduce nap 2, okay, into your nap schedule. Okay, what about 14 months to 3 years? So this is a lot, this is a wide window of time, right? At 14, 15 months, they start to only want one nap of about 2 hours. Okay, so at that time, if you have a baby that's over a year old and you're trying to figure out, oh my gosh, are they ready for one nap? Your baby has to be able to be awake for about 5 hours. Okay, once they can be awake comfortably for 5 hours, yes, they're going to get a little bit fussy. Maybe give them a snack, when they start to get fussy at 10 or 10:30, if they're starting to be a little bit, kind of seeming a little bit tired, give them a snack, take them outside for some outside fresh air. Then you'll do their one nap after lunch, okay, at about 12:30. In this, the one nap can be starting as early as 11:30. If they wake up at 6:30 in the morning, if your child's on one nap by 11:30, they might be just wiped. But guess what? They can sleep from 11:30 to 1:30 and then go to bed at 6:30. Okay, so that would be a great schedule. But ideally, you want that one nap to be as close to 12:30 as you can. And you want to know why this works is because when your baby is going to if you start a daycare at a year old, or if you start, anytime you start them in a daycare or preschool, the daycare naps always have their nap right after lunch. So whether it starts at 12, 12:30, sometimes 1 p.m. 1 p.m. I find is a little bit late, but every place is different. Okay, how do we deal with short naps? So when we have short naps for our baby, you might be thinking to yourself, oh, Kristal, I'm trying all this, but my baby is still napping really short. Now, when we say short naps, the first 2 naps, they should be an hour or more. Okay, so if you're dealing with chronic naps, short naps, first check to see whether your room's dark enough. Secondly, check to see if you've got a routine going before your baby goes down. You should be doing the same thing each time. So change diaper, say goodnight to a few things in the room, sing them a song, read a couple stories. Do the same thing each time. If they're still napping for a short amount of time, try to leave your baby in the crib for 1 hour. Okay, so if you put them down at 9, leave them in the crib till 10. Now, if you want to sit next to them while they're trying to fall asleep, go and try to pat their bum a little bit to help them go back to sleep, that's fine. But try to have them in the crib for an hour. If they wake up before the hour mark, I like to say to my clients, don't return to the room for the few minutes that you're leaving them, but some people can't do that. So if you have to return to the room and try to help them a little bit, that's fine, okay? Do what is within your comfort level, okay? Only do what you think you can do as a parent. Don't stretch beyond that, okay? What else do I want to add about short naps? The only thing about naps is that if your baby's not falling asleep at the beginning of the nap on their own, they're going to nap for a short amount of time because they need you to come repeat the same sleep association again. So if you're also trying to really be proactive about this whole sleep thing, trying to do your best to have baby go down awake for their nap, and after your little mini routine, that is what's going to help them to be able to link their sleep cycles when they wake up after 45 minutes. Okay, so the main component is making sure they're falling asleep on their own, and then adding in this 15 minutes of extra time if they wake up before the hour mark. Okay, what about bedtime? So I've talked a tiny bit about this already, but bedtime should be floating between 6 and 7 p.m. Their morning wake time floats between 6 and 7 a.m. as well. Okay, so I don't like getting up at 6 in the morning personally. No one does, but sometimes babies just prefer an earlier wake time. So you have to be able to manage that if you can. What you can do is you can start, if you're starting out sleep training, you can get them sleeping more independently first. Then you can start to shift things a little bit. Okay, so offering bedtimes and meal times 15 minutes later every day until you get to the time that you want them to be sleeping. But again, expecting your baby to wake up anytime after 7 a.m. is not realistic. 7 a.m. is generally the latest we can expect a baby to sleep in, okay? A baby who's well rested, okay? If you're finding your child has these really wildly fluctuating morning rise times, I'm talking about after 5 months of age, 5.5 months of age. If your baby's waking up at just these wildly erratic morning times and you're struggling with naps, your first step is going to be to start waking up your baby at the same time every day, 7 a.m., okay? So just start waking them at the same time, and then you'll find that the naps will fall into a much easier pattern. Sometimes we can skew things a bit later, but the child must be well rested first. So again, work on the independent sleep, work on catching them up on their sleep, and then you can start shifting things a bit later. Okay, let's talk about the routine. So I've touched on it a little tiny bit already, but let's talk more about it because the routine is so important. I mean, what are we as humans other than just routine, habitual kind of people, right? We all have our little habits. We get up in the morning, we make our coffee, we do whatever our habits are, get dressed. It just keeps the day running more smoothly. And babies are no different. They need a habit. They need to be able to predict what's coming. Your baby, as early as 3 or 4 months, your baby can recognize what you're doing. That's why so many of my families say, well, I don't do the sleep sack because my baby hated the sleep sack. Why do you think they hated the sleep sack? Because you were putting them to bed and they don't want to go to bed. They start protesting as soon as you put them in the sleep sack, or as soon as you start reading the stories, they start protesting because, oh, they have FOMO, right? I don't want to go to sleep. But good thing you're the parent, right? You know they need to have a rest because they're rubbing their eyes and they're just cranky as heck. You know they need to go to sleep. So you still have to put them in the sleep sack. You still have to read them their stories to get them used to the idea of going down, right? When you make these predictable patterns for your baby, they will start to understand what's coming, okay? And they'll start to accept it much better. Okay, the routine should be predictable. So what about your routine before bed and naps? So I want you to include the same 3 to 4 steps each time. So we feed 30 to 60 minutes before the sleep time. That's including nap and supper. Oh, sorry, supper. Oh, geez. Nap and bedtime. Okay, so you feed baby their final bottle or their final nurse half an hour before they're going to go to bed. Then we might do a bath, okay, to separate the two things. Now, hey, here's a bonus tip for you guys. This is one of the most important changes I make for all my clients. Take this and use it in your family. Do the feed before the bath. Whoa, mind blown, because every family I work with is doing the opposite. Your baby does not need to be eating right up to the second that they go to bed, because they're associating, they fall asleep with the milk, and then they go in their crib and they wake up again an hour later because they need the milk again. Okay, so do this one little thing. Try to give them their bath after their final feed and then put them to bed and just see how it goes. Same with nap. Feed them either their solid foods or their milk in that 45 minutes to an hour before they're going to be going for a nap. Then you do your mini routine before the nap and you put them down, and then they wake up and they'll be hungry again because there'll be a 2 or 3 hour window, right? So it makes the days flow much more smoothly. So you'll do their feed. For their mini routine, you change them into their sleep sack, read the same 2 stories, say goodnight to a few things in the room, sing a song, and put them down completely awake. Okay, so this routine gets them ready to accept sleep. For bedtime, like I said, put a bath after the feed, and for naps, just have some playtime. Okay, some tummy time or some playtime, and then do your mini routine. But Kristal, what if they cry? Okay, so of course you're thinking to yourself, oh, as soon as I don't feed them to sleep, they're gonna cry, right? Of course they might cry or fuss. It's a normal way to communicate. Your baby cries for other things too, right? They cry when they have a dirty diaper and you change them. They cry when they need your attention. They cry when they're bored of an activity. It's a normal way for them to communicate. Especially when we're changing things, they're going to protest. They are more sensitive, the more sensitive or resistant your child is, the more consistent you need to be. So introduce these things in just like little mini steps if you can. You can be there right next to them. You can pick them up if they need some comfort. You can sit in a chair next to them. Okay, there's a variety of ways we can help to encourage your child to sleep that don't involve just leaving them to wail alone. Okay, I never do that. This is where we would do our sleep training methods together. So in a consult, we would decide what works with your style. I can teach you how to do each one correctly. So you might go online, you might hear things, you might see something called pick up, put down, or chair method. Let me tell you, pick up, put down works for little babies, not so much once they're 5 or 6 months. Pick up, put down is not the best. It just really massively confuses them. I can help you to do each of these sleep training methods correctly. And we can change it as we go. So that's the really great thing about working with someone like me who's an expert, because I just know if this is not working for your baby, I usually can figure out really quickly what's happening, okay, why they're not settling. why they're not learning it, why they're not accepting this new routine. And guess what, guys? The good news is that you can take a break if you need to after 45 or 60 minutes. If things are just like, it's just too much, you can't do it, take a break and then try again, okay? Or try again the next night. You'll you know, it's not, it's not about you didn't have a giant fail, okay? You just have to do a redo, okay? It's not a problem. I do this with my family sometimes too. Okay, let's talk about night weaning. So the main thing again is that you're going to have your baby fall asleep at the beginning of the night on their own first, and you're going to work through that. If you need the help of someone like me, you hire me to help you. Then once you're night weaning, we want to look at a few things. So the typical scenario for most babies, I want you to make sure you've checked with your doctor, but here's kind of a typical scenario. So babies who are 4 to 5 months, they still may need 2 night feeds. Okay, so you might decide that you might feed them around 10 or 11 and then again around 2 or 3. Okay, then you might try to not feed them again until they wake up in the morning at 6 or so. Okay, so that's just a typical scenario. From 5 to 8 months, I usually say, you know, 5 to 7, 8 months, you might have one nighttime feed. Try to have that nighttime feed after midnight and then not again until the morning time. Okay, so guess what? What you're going to do is any other time that your baby wakes up when you're not wanting to feed them, again, if you've cleared it with your doctor, then what you'll do is you will do the sleep training method for any other time that they've woken up. So you might instead of feeding them, if you're feeding your baby at every nighttime wake, you might instead just rock them for a bit. Like you're trying to kind of reduce the amount of associations over time, right? 8 months and afterwards, you might decide to nighttime wean. So you might, your baby might be comfortably on solids. They might have enough milk during the day. Check with your doctor. Then you can night wean, okay? And how we do that, to night wean, we increase their daytime calories. If you're going from 2 to 1 feed or from 1 to 0 feeds, if you're using a bottle, you can reduce the ounces for the first feed, keep doing the second feed. Then when the first feed's eliminated, you can go on and reduce the next one, okay, if you want to. Not if you're going to keep the last feed, you just keep it, but if you want to eliminate, you reduce it too. If you're nursing, you can reduce the minutes of nursing. Same as the above, okay? Or some people might just do it cold turkey, right? Where they might just do their sleep training method instead of feeding until the baby goes back to sleep, okay? So you can do whichever you want. These are sometimes things you need to check with your doctor, of course, but generally I find my nursing and bottle feeding clients are able to night wean pretty quickly or with not too much fuss, right? We always go by what we think the child is ready for, and we take it slow if we need to. Okay, let's talk about troubleshooting. So it's 10:30. I've got enough time to go through our troubleshooting areas, and then we'll have a little bit of time for questions. And I'm just gonna pause for a second while I plug in my computer. Hold on. Okay, great. So let's talk about what about when we're troubleshooting. So how about, for instance, nap transitions? So this is what I help lots of my families with kind of throughout the plan or later on. Once we've worked together, they may come back to me with some questions. For instance, how do we go from 3 to 2 naps? When they resist the third nap for 1 to 2 weeks, and if they can stay up longer in between their different naps, their 2 naps, then we move to if they can stay up longer between their wake times here, then we move to 2 naps only. We lengthen the time between the 2 naps and we bring bedtime earlier. So bedtime may temporarily need to be 6:30 p.m. Now, you probably are thinking, oh my God, my baby could never go to bed that early. But remember, by this time, they may be falling asleep more on their own by this time. So they will be able to fall asleep more easily, especially if they've only had the 2 naps during the day and they're quite tired. They may sleep all night from 6 to 6 a.m., okay? Once they're on an age-appropriate schedule, it is possible. My baby, Kristal, what if my baby's up for 2 to 3 hours at night? This is sometimes called a split night and is generally a scheduling issue. Okay, so we can try, if they're getting too much nighttime or too much daytime sleep, we can try limiting their daytime sleep to that 3 hours or so. You can try to put them down earlier for bedtime. You can try, making sure that they're waking up at the same time every morning. Most of my clients don't end up struggling with things like this. We usually are able to organize this just having them on an age appropriate schedule. But what about if baby's progress is not steady? So what if you started the sleep training process and they're just kind of, their progress is going up and down? I want to tell you that's totally normal. Okay, so there will be regression on odd nights. So if you've, lots of parents try sleep training and then they say to me, oh, Kristal, things are going well. And then on night 3 or 5 or a week into it, everything just went to crap. Well, because babies, usually they'll initially be accepting of this new routine. And then after a few nights, they go, whoa, wait a minute, not happening. I don't like this. And then they try to regress, or they try to get you to stop doing what you're doing. So that's when, again, according to the development of your child, and if you're comfortable doing it, you have to just stay consistent with what you're doing with their sleep. Oh my gosh, I'm losing my voice. Hold on. I better have some water too here. Okay, like I mentioned before, leaps. Okay, so I don't pay too much attention to the leaps. I don't rely on them because it always seems like the leaps are blamed for everything. Okay, so I don't like doing that. I think we can teach them to sleep well at any age. Okay, again, if your child is not, if they learn to fall asleep, if they don't have, unless they're waking from hunger or discomfort, of course they may be waking if they're really hungry, in which case we feed them. If there's some kind of a discomfort about something like reflux or something is paining them, of course we always, we don't expect them to be, perfect sleepers when something like that is going on. But of all else being equal, if they are not in discomfort and not hungry, then it's okay to have them to be able to fall back asleep, of course. And you know what? Having our kids sleep will help them to feel like if they're coming down with something or if they're sick, sleep will help them to recover faster, right? Should I do a dream feed? Okay, dream feeds, to me, I say never wake a baby to eat after 2 months of age unless they are underweight or your doctor has told you to, okay? Please, if your baby's underweight or your doctor has said you need to wake your baby to feed, of course you're going to wake them to feed. But if your doctor has not told you this, and if your baby's gaining weight and is healthy and gaining weight on their curve, after 2 months of age, I would not wake a baby to eat, because guess what? Sometimes, my second point here is, unless you are feeding at 10 p.m. and baby is sleeping all the way until the morning, or let's say you feed the baby a dream feed at 10 and then they sleep all the way to 4 or 5 in the morning and you're happy to do another feed at that time, perfect. Great, that's working for you, just great. Don't change it. Some unicorn babies can do this. Okay, there are babies where you can dream feed and then they sleep till the next time you're comfortable feeding them, and then it works great. Unfortunately, what I find with many of my families is that dream feed doesn't really do what you think it's supposed to do. They still wake up 2 hours later. They still wake up 3 hours later. Okay, you're not getting a good stretch after that. If that's the case, if you're not getting a good stretch after a dream feed, I mean, I'm talking like babies who are, say, 4 months or more, okay? Because some people will still do a dream feed for under 4 months, which is fine. If your baby's over that age and you're doing a dream feed and it's just not working for you, try not doing it and see when they wake naturally on their own, and then maybe feed them at that first time that they wake naturally on their own, and then see how that goes. So that's just a little tip for those of you who may be doing a dream feed. What about separation anxiety? So of course there are times of this around, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months. There's different little separation anxiety type times, but that is no reason to not sleep train. So your baby is healthily attached to you. Deal with the separation anxiety during the day. If they get upset when you leave the room, make sure they're safe if they're playing with their little toys or whatever, and you step out of the room for a second. Just try stepping out of the room in like tiny little bits, like go down the hallway and then come right back. Oh, good job. You're sitting with your toys. Good job. Like always make sure your baby is safe, of course, wherever they're playing. But, so deal with helping them to realize that you're still there during the day. And then at night, they might be a little bit going through some separation anxiety, but that doesn't mean that we need to just throw all sleep routines out the window. Okay. We can still expect them to sleep normal. Okay, what about taking your baby into your bed at night? So if you're doing this, Sometimes, not all the time. This is inconsistent and will very much cause confusion for baby, okay? So if you find that you're falling asleep a lot nursing baby in the night, you always want to make sure that they're safe, right? So you might enlist the help of your partner to take baby to their crib after a feed, because falling asleep with your baby in bed, it can be a dangerous thing. I don't want to lie. It can lead to tragedy. So I really want to make sure we're not having to do that. If you find it hard to stay awake, sit in a chair instead, right? But just don't fall asleep in the chair with your baby. So I know it's really hard, really, really hard to do this. So enlist the help of your partner, try your best to stay awake, try your best to commit to keeping baby in their own sleep space after their feeds. Okay, it's very important for everyone's safety. If you're wanting to stop bed sharing with your baby, then you have to really commit to doing it, especially once babies are like 6 months and older. If you have been bed sharing with them in the middle of the night, if you decide you don't want to do it anymore, you have to just commit to not doing it, because otherwise baby will always want it, because you are sometimes doing it and sometimes not. So it becomes very inconsistent. So you have to have a consistent approach, right, to do that. What if baby is taking a short nap? So we already touched a little bit about this, but this is a little bit more troubleshooting. So the secret to figuring out nap timings, this is an art and a science to it, this, okay? So if your baby wakes up happy and slept an hour or more, what this generally means is the nap timing was perfect, okay? So if they're sleeping an hour or more, great, don't mess with it. If your baby sleeps less than an hour and wakes up mad, move the next nap 15 minutes earlier. So what that means is if they're waking up like really crying and upset after a short time, try shortening the wake time for the next nap. If they sleep less than an hour and wake up just happy as a clam, like wake up refreshed, that means they didn't have enough sleep pressure before the nap. It means they weren't up for long enough. So try adding 15 minutes. Okay, again, this is an art and a science that when you're working with someone like me, that we are like constantly, for our chatting support, we're constantly troubleshooting and chatting back and forth to get this figured out, okay? Because every baby is different and they are their own little personality that we need to figure out, right? So that's all that it's about. Okay, thank you. So I want to say, you guys, you can book in with for a 15-minute call with me at elementsleep.com. Payment plans are available if necessary. So if you want to book a package and it's too much money at the time, we can do a half and half if needed. But so right now on my website, I have, if you want to book a consult with me, you have to first book a 15-minute call. If you don't want to do a phone call with me, that's okay. You can just email me and I can open up a spot for you to book in, or I can book it in for you online. But I like to have talks with people before they're booking in, because we have to make sure that we are a good fit to work together and that we have realistic expectations of what it will look like for everybody. So, well, okay, I got through that I'm really happy with my timing, because I didn't want to go much over the hour and a half. So now we have time for questions. So I know probably lots of you do have questions. So I will just, if you unmute yourself to ask, and then if someone else is online at the same time, just wait a little bit to chat. So, okay, I will open it to questions now if anybody wants. And be sure to tell me first how old your child is too.
I could start if.
I'm just gonna stop. I think I'm gonna stop the recording. Hold on. Before I take questions, I'm gonna stop the recording. Thank you for tuning in, everybody.